technical delay. You were right, by the way. I was on the Insta North Ether cable, and hopefully the stream will no longer be lagging. So we're back live then for the race here in Australia, and hopefully it is a good race around in Australia. Hopefully we're live as well, because I know sometimes I could have technical difficulties with the system not being live. But here we go then. We're back into the race as Finn Hertz still leads the Grand Prix. Kick has set the fast lap time as well, who's down there in P9. Where is he? Where is Kick? Is he in the session? No, he's not actually. I don't know why I said Kick. Eric. It was Eric, sorry.
Yeah, but Eric on the braking then very near into the back of Mike. Lucas has been falling down the order a little bit. He's been overtaken by Geiteka, so against what I said in qualifying, showing some good pace. He's up to P6 behind Enzo. Misha on the charge. Still, he has found a way past Enzo on the previous lap. Down into the braking zone of turn 10. Lucas is the first one to pick up a 3-second time penalty already on lap 4. That's not ideal for the Williams man. But Misha looking at the back of Fireblaze, trying to find a way past, because he knows that once he gets past Fireblaze, he can try and set his sight on the two cars ahead of him. But look at the exit there of Misha. Fireblaze struggling a little bit there for grip. And here comes the Aston Martin. He's going to have to go along around the outside into turn 10, which is easier said than done. He's later on the brakes. Oh, backhand stepping out. Now on the exit, he's going to have the better traction, wheel to wheel with Fireblaze. He's got his nose on the inside as we go wheel to the Ferrari and the Aston Martin. Fireblaze running a little bit wide, and Misha is going to get past, and that's a beautiful move. And he's from P15 up into P3 at the end of lap 4. And now it's just 3 seconds behind Dylan and Finn Geerts up ahead in P1 and P2.
Such great pace there from Misha in P3. Qualifying, he started at P15, but he's up into P3, indicating that he's definitely running a wet setup as well. Hence why he was struggling in the race trim to make up 12 places in the first opening 5 laps. Same with Eric as well. Eric's made up 12 places as well in P7, so he's made up a mile again of places up into 7th place ahead of Mike. And now his closest rival ahead of him is Geiteka, also from 12 to 6 as well. So we can definitely tell that the wet conditions here are spicing things up. But as I know from so far, the top 2 are pulling away from the rest of the field. It is Finn Geerts versus Dylan. Now, we saw qualifying how mighty Finn Geerts was in the qualifying. But in terms of race here, he could be struggling because maybe his setup is suited more to more the dry conditions than it is the wet conditions. We've seen plenty of times as well where drivers favour the dry conditions as they expect to have track position at the most better. But you can see through turn 9 and turn 10 how wide he's going through as well. You can see he's really struggling there in the corners and how close Dylan is. But with Dylan, with no shadow of speed, he's not able to get past Finn Geerts for the time being, has to stay behind him as well. However though, Misha is catching up slowly but surely.
Yeah, he is 2.9. He's gained a few tenths so far on this lap. He is absolutely on the charts, and he might be putting himself in the fight for a race win in a few laps time. The gap's down to 2.7. Dylan, of course, might be getting held up a little bit there by Finn Geerts. We see the McLaren struggling for grip a little bit through turn 14. So Misha, he is closing the gap, slowly but surely, but give it a few laps, and he might be at the back of those two. He's already built a gap of 1.5 seconds. There he is, the proof. A fastest lap of the race for Misha. Oh, Finn Geerts with a 3-second time penalty on lap 6 already. That is far from ideal as Erik goes faster than Misha, but Finn Geerts in his fight for the race win, getting a penalty on lap 6. That is going to be difficult for the McLaren driver as more drivers start to get penalties, as it is already very tricky to keep your car on track, and once you pass across that white line, you will immediately receive a warning. But Misha down to 2.3 as Daniele, the only one on intermediates, finds himself wheel to wheel with TVH, and now he does not get given a lot of space on the outside, and that means the Mercedes is able to get back past the Haas man. He's on the inters, but at the moment the wet still seem to be the quicker tire and the tire you want to be on, as he picks up a 3-second time penalty as well there through turn 8. A big moment ahead of him by TVH that might allow the Haas to get in position to try and overtake, but overtaking in the wet around turns 9 and 10 is very, very tricky. We saw it happen between Fireblaze and Lucas a few laps ago, and Lucas had to cut across the track to avoid making contact. But if we go back to the front of the field, Finn in the lead ahead of Dylan. With Misha, the gap is down to 1.9. He is gaining rapidly, 2-3 more laps, and he might be already staring at the back of those two ahead of him.
I'm looking on board with Mike as well. Mike is really struggling at the exit of turn 12 and 13. You can see massive oversteer, loads of corrections on the steering wheel of that Ferrari driver too. And as you saw, Misha is cashed the top two, and he could get revenge as well after what happened on Tuesday when Felix Hertz did take him out in JSR as those two were fighting for the lead. And guess who won the Grand Prix? It was no one in the commentator box alongside me as well. So Milan Langer has definitely got a lot to talk about here in Australia when it comes to winning. But the top two so far, they're close together. But Misha, with some mighty pace there in the Aston Martin P3, could be looking for revenge against Felix Hertz, the man that took him out, which led to Milan Langer winning the Grand Prix. As he's catched up, the gap is 1.9. But Dylan still puts the pressure on Felix Hertz ahead of him. The gap is only 0.2 of a second, but we know it is very difficult. You can see Finn going out wide to turn on the turn 10. Maybe this is Dylan's best chance to get past. Dylan, can he overtake Finn immediately as we head down in towards 11 we go? As we head down towards the breaker zone, he's not able to get past still, and he still stays behind the McLaren driver. Doesn't want to stay behind there too long because he knows he's losing time. There is Misha in the background, just behind us in P3, ready to take advantage any time against the top two if they make a mistake in the Grand Prix. But Finn Hertz is definitely struggling here in Australia, holding up behind Dylan.
Well, Misha seems to be overdriving the car there a little bit, asking a lot of the tires as he runs onto the grass there a little bit, but he's lost a little bit of time on this particular lap. So I do wonder, after 8 laps, has he asked too much of his tires to still be able to go and gain time as he makes a mistake through turns 1 and 2, ran onto the grass and loses another 3/4 tenths of a second. So Misha was making some great progress and is retired and left from the session.
The hell?
That is, I don't know what happened there, but wow. That is a shocking moment there as Misha's out of the race for some reason. He lost connection there, or did he just rage quit? I'm not sure. We might. He's been disconnected. He said it in chat, so that is very unlucky.
As Lucas there, I just saw on board with him at the exit of turn 5 pick up a 3-second penalty. I was about to say, if that's Misha, the exit of turn 1, who lost the car and rage quit right there and then, I would have been embarrassed for him because I was super embarrassed. But if it was a disconnection issue, then fair enough, because when people disconnect, they do retire. The car retires, the AI car retires on the track for some reason. I feel so sorry for Misha down in P19, of course, because he was catching the top 2 at Ray and Nos. But unfortunately, after all that hard work undone by connection, that's the game's worst nightmare, of course. Instant connection issues around here in F1 or any other game you play as well. So I feel sorry for him, who was retired down there in P19. That's why I was laughing, because I thought he race quit except turn 1 with a big mistake and retired on the track, but he hasn't done so. So that's because of the game. As we continue the battle then for P3, P4, P5, Khatikas is right there as well in P5. He looks better in terms of the race trim in comparison towards the qualifying trim, because he did struggle a lot in qualifying. Mike, however, in P7 has set the fast lap time of the race as well in P7 there. He was teammates with Fireblaze, still is teammates with Fireblaze in P3, but Khatikas putting massive pressure on Max in front of him.
Yeah, so Khatikas in P5, he's in a sandwich there. He's putting the pressure on Enzo, but he's been Eric behind him is putting the pressure on Khatikas as Wessel and Happy Meal fighting out for P9 and P10 in this race, going wheel to wheel here. Quite a close fight there into the wall almost. This touch-up has to be mindful there with his front wing and not putting your opponents into the wall. But Khatikas, he's dropped behind just a little bit, so as Eric, as it's very difficult to get past in these tricky conditions with some dirty air as well. But Enzo, for now, holding on to that P4 position, but after Misha's retirement, it's back to a two-way fight between Finn and Dylan, and now Dylan, all he has to do is keep his car within the white lines for the remaining 20 laps, which is not going to be an easy task, but he just has to play it safe. He doesn't need to overtake Finn, but of course, still a long way to go, and Fireblaze looking quite good in a pretty comfortable P3 right now. And the gap behind is 2.5 seconds as Wessel and Patachop go wheel to wheel again. Wessel once again running out slightly wide there, and that allows the Williams to go through. Here comes TVH now sending it up the inside. Contact between the two, and that move was never really on, and he has to back out as a result of that. Wessel stays in 11th place, but some good action here after just 10 laps of racing. And Vanish Erik going to be able to find a way past Geitenkaas, because Erik, let's face it, he's been one of the quickest drivers so far in this race. So we will need to find a way past Geitenkaas, and then so as soon as possible to try and chase after Fireblaze for that final spot of the pony. While his teammate Daniele has set fast up the race. He spitted for full wets 2 laps ago. So a little bit of a strategic blunder there from Daniele to start on the intermediates. It has not worked out. It was good that he tried, but unfortunately now finds himself all the way back down in P18.
Yeah, it was a gamble there for Daniel. I didn't quite pay off there, unfortunately. It is still wet conditions. As you can see, Mercedes sliding, happy to be sliding through turn 8 and turn 9 there. Well, before turn 9. This is turn 8 right now as we make our way now on towards the back straight as we go through turn 9 and turns at the end of this must to Patel job is uses battery, but of course doesn't want to risk him overtake going down into towards 9 and 10. Now I do know from racing experience around Australia a few days ago how difficult it is to follow a car through turn 8 because you carry so much speed, you have a lot of steering pull as well going in towards turn 8, and therefore with full throttle in the dirty air in full race tanks, it's just so difficult to keep on the back of your rival too. So he did go out wide, but still able to stay in P9. You just got to manage your car through the race as well, because dirty air in the wet conditions, it is so difficult to overtake in the wet conditions. I know, because I had a race around Australia a few days ago in the intermediates, and I just struggled to overtake anybody. I was quicker, much quicker than anybody on the intermediates, but unfortunately I just couldn't overtake anybody because it was so difficult to do so. So you just can't find a way past it. I think you have to take a lot of pain and just stay behind. It's all about undercuts as well. It's all about time management as well, because as you can see in P2, Dylan can't overtake Finn Hertz. Now this could be strategically in P2 because he knows he doesn't have to overtake him with that 3-second time penalty, but at the same time he wants to as well. But he's gaining massive time of Fireblaze in P3. The gap is 7.2. Although Max is catching Fireblaze slightly though, the gap is 1.9 seconds though. So Fireblaze can't rest. But I'm quite intrigued because I know that some of these people we're still running low downforce setups, and I know some of them will be taking a lot of the tyre wear out in the corners. So it is a watchdog strategy, of course, around here in Australia. Look at this, 3 abreast almost. Bush, TT versus Mick and TVHNL. These drivers always find themselves inside the top 10, regardless as well. I remember TVHNL in Hungary, who finished in P6 and also scored a lot of top 10 finishes as well, despite qualifying outside the top 15, getting onto Q1 plenty of times. Up there in P12 so far, ahead of Bush TT and Mummy Nick qualified inside the top 10, but did get pushed outside the top 10. He's down to P14, so did Tyson as well. So both Sappers, who had a fantastic qualifying, find themselves outside the top 10 and currently down there in P3, P4. But so far, it is still Fitchur's leading, and I think these guys might be pitting just soon as well, because I don't think these tyres can go all the way to the end of the Grand Prix. Surely not.
Yeah, I doubt they'll make it. As you say, that Ryan pulls into the pit lane, but yeah, I think they might be pitting in a few laps at least. But something I do want to point out: one of the quickest drivers of qualifying is Lucas. He started in P3. He finds himself down in P18, but the gap towards P7 is 13.5 seconds. So Lucas is struggling so much in these conditions. It's such an incredible difference to what we've seen from him in the dry. So it's really unfortunate to see him struggling this much, because he is really holding up a little bit of a train behind him all the way down to P14 with Mominek. As Ryan here pitted for a brand new set of wets. It's not going to be easy though to make it to the end, because he will have to do 18 laps, and if he has to pit after only 11 laps, then it's not going to be possible to do 18 laps in the second stint. So might be looking at a 2-stop. I'm not sure if it's gonna if the conditions are gonna improve any kind during this race. If so, we might be going on to Inters later on, but I'm not sure. Vessel in the meantime has found a way past, but that job through the turn 9 and 10 chicane. Bit of a moment there ahead with Happy Meal and Lucas, as Mike and Geitenkaas, more drivers pulling into the pit lane here at the end of lap 12. On to lap 13 we go. The Ferrari and the Red Bull both into the pit lane. Geitenkaas onto brand himself full wets, and so does Mike, who for a moment there glitched out ahead of him. But Vessel into the pit lane now as well. So I would assume that these are all drivers on pad on on controller, because tire wear on controller is so much more compared to Drive to War on Steam. But look at this battle ahead there, by the way. Mike, Bushi, TT, TVHNL, and Geitikas coming out in the middle of this fight. But yeah, like I said, the controller tire wear is absolutely terrible in this game. It's the difference is insane, as Mike makes a little bit of contact with Bushi TT. But I do reckon that the drivers who are on the steering wheel can stay out for a little bit longer.
Oh no!
And
He's
Mike
out of the race!
for once
He just crashed!
Oh.
He crashed in the same place as Jad Doohan in the first race in Australia. So I was on board with him. Bush TT. That was such a strange crash happened in towards turn 6. He just put himself in the wall, and that small crash, unfortunately, he is out of the Grand Prix. And that is down to 17 drivers now in this Grand Prix. That means Finn Hertz, Dylan, Fireblaze, Eric, Mike, and Crash and Max can pit this lap and put on a set of new World Cup tyres. Now, what you said in the first stint about the pad players, you were absolutely spot on, Milan, because Mike, Geitikas, and I believe Vessel are on a pad as Geitikas picks up a drive-through penalty. Now, why? It's a VSC, not a safety car. So my bad, it's a VSC, not a safety car. That's why I got confused there. But Geitikas picked up himself a driver penalty under the VSC. But what you said about the first stint about people being on pad, you're absolutely correct, by the way, because they are on controller.
Yeah, the tire wear difference is just incredible. That Geitikas having to pull back into the pit lane to serve his drive-through penalty. All this good work in the first stint for P12 into the top 5 has become undone, because now after the drive-through penalty he will be down in P11 as Amos Lucas and Fireblaze fighting it out. Fireblaze on the new tires, sends it up the inside into turn 3, wheel to wheel, almost contact but not quite between these two. He's gonna have to go long around the outside of turn 4, surely not. He's gonna be able to make that work. Still bit of contact now side by side to turn 5 where somebody crashed 1 lap ago, very close though, and Fireblaze is gonna make that work, and that is a beautiful move. Fireblaze now up into P4. He's 13 seconds though behind Dylan and Finn Geerts, and actually after those pit stops, bit of a gap between those two. 1.5 is Finn Geerts ahead of Dylan. Eric has stayed out, so has Lucas on those wets. Mike now gets past TVHNL, another driver who stayed out, and Tyzee as well, and Eastbrand, who is of course not racing, but Eric in the lead now, but I reckon he will be coming into the pit lane probably on this lap, if not then on the next one. On lap 15, around the halfway point of this race. So Finn Geerts then in a virtual P1 position, with Dylan following closely behind, as Eric surprisingly sets the fastest lap of the race on 14 lap old wets. So does that mean, is the track is it improving conditions wise?
It could be, it could be shifting over to the intermediate conditions. Today 1.8, and of course we saw that for the first pitches, that was our lap, so therefore he didn't go quickest, as we see Lucas and Tyson now make their way in the pit lane. But this could suggest to me that the track is getting quicker and quicker. Maybe this could be its territory as Eric there slides through the corner. Maybe this could be a good strategic call from Eric. Maybe he could go from wets to inters instead of, look at that, in the first sector it proves by a 10th as well. So this track could be improving quite significantly as well, and therefore this could be a wet to inter strategy. Maybe pulled an absolute blinder because the gap stabilised between himself and Finn by 3.5, 3.6, and still he improves in his first sector. So could Eric pull an absolute blinder here? Is it time to put the inters though? I'm not quite sure. Mummy Nick, however, has pitted, and Tyson too. Both kick-starters are now on the wet compound tyres as Eric stays out once again then. So is Eric pushing towards the intermediates, or is the track simply getting better and is still the wet tyres still in this race? We're about to find out. But here he is then, coming towards the final 3 corners. Will he pit the slap or will he stay out? Yes, he pits the slap. But what tyres is it? It's crucial. Is it wets or inters? We're about to find out now as Daniela picks himself up a 3-second time penalty. Of course, he's now Eric's teammate as Daniela pits this lap. Geitikas and Daniela were teammates last season. What tyres are these? Wets. So it's still wet compound tyres.
Right, that's so interesting strategy. He might have been able to go on to inters, but of course the wets might still be the quicker tire, but he has some great pace on worn out wets.
Yeah, have you noticed that Eric is rejoined right in front of Fireplace, Enzo and Mike? Mike, remember, he was last in the DRS train. All of a sudden, Eric's up into P3. What a fantastic drive. From P19 to P3. Fantastic drive. He's managed to somehow overcut Fireplace in P4. And Eric, who struggled at the first race in Australia JSR, he's up into P3 in these wet conditions on a brand new wet compound tyres and continuing towards the end. I thought Fireplace would finish P3 comfortably, but all of a sudden Eric has found some mighty pace. I'm surprised that Eric has done that massive overcut and somehow got ahead of Fireplace, Max and Mike, and now Eric surely should find himself on the podium comfortably as well in P3.
Yeah, so great performance so far from Eric, and I'm sure he will be able to get that third place in the back. The gap towards the two cars ahead of him, it's way too large for him to close down. And there's 14 laps to go. It's 14 seconds. He's not getting 14 a second a lap. I don't see that happening, but that P3 should very well be possible from Eric from 19th on the grid. So a great drive from him so far. And speaking of the top two, they have closed back towards each other because Dylan, he is now 6 tenths behind Finn Geerts with around 13 laps to go. So as long as he keeps it within the white lines, then he will be able to win this race comfortably. Because his pace seems very, very strong, and he's very easily able to stay with Finn Geerts ahead of him. So I think Dylan is on his way to win this race. Although anything can happen at any time. If there's a safety car out there, and then Eric is back in contention there for the race when he's already making a gap toward the cars behind. 1.4 seconds already towards Fireblaze, who is still in a DRS train. I say DRS train, there's no DRS, but he's in a train with Enzo and Mike as well. Mike making some good progress after a rough start of this race. He's right behind Enzo and looking to make it a 4-5 finish potentially for Ferrari. And then Daniele then in P7, but he does have to pit again because he's not doing 22 laps. Actually I say 22 laps on full wet, so he might have to pit again later on in this race, which will lose him a lot of time. And Geitegas, and unfortunately, after the drive-through penalty, finds himself in P8, which will become P7 if his tires make it to the end, which is not a guarantee when playing on controller, but it will be P7 then, limited for him, because the gap towards Mike is it's over 10 seconds for him. So it was a great first stint for Geitegas, but after the drive-through penalty, unfortunately he's down now in P18, but luckily for him has lost too many positions. But looking at a net P7 right now, but at the end of lap 18, actually we have just started lap 18, there's 12 laps to go, and Finn Geerts and Dylan still in the lead of this race since the start, as Eric, he's on the charts, a 1:31.2, that's the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, Mike is catching as well. Mike is really putting the pressure on Mike as well, which could really help Fireblaze try and get a P4 and P5 in this race, because the podium's lost now. Ever since Eric came out in front of Fireblaze, Max and Mike, he's pulled away. The gap is 2.5 seconds then, so Eric is left unchallenged. I don't think he can catch the top two. He may have the pace to do so, but unfortunately, the level laps have to go is a tall order, a long stretch. So maybe P3, but P3, however, for Eric, who has done a mighty job. No qualifying, maybe no practice. I'm not quite sure how much practice he's done before this race, whether he knew he was running or not, but however, he has done an absolute mighty job from all the way back into the field, from on old tyres, to go all the way and have tremendous pace to pit and still be a P3 is a mighty job from Eric as well. So fantastic, and plus he's pulling a massive gap behind as well, so he's going to be P3 regardless. Even if he picks up a 3-second penalty, he's still got the gap over Fireblaze by 2 tenths of a second. But it's a big battle between P4 down to P6, between Mike, Enzo, and Fireblaze, P4, P5, and 6. So McLaren in a Ferrari sandwich. Can Max find his way past Fireblaze? He's right at the back of the Ferrari, but Fireblaze, I can see that he's really struggling in terms of the exit. He has massive wheel spin every time he applies the throttle, and Max is trying to catch him off guard, trying to take any opportunity he can to get past the Ferrari driver if he can. But you can see him really struggling in the exit as well. Low ERS, Eric has set the fast lap of the race with a 30.862. But this is going Dylan's way. But actually, like you said, the gap is over 1 second. The gap is 1.3, 1.4. There is 10 laps left to go. We know the stream is quite powerful. The dirty air Dylan may not be in right now. But if there's any way Finn Geerts has any pace to try and get the gap over 2 seconds and win this Grand Prix, That is an absolute achievement in itself. Fantastic as well, because look at that, the gap is 1.6, it was 1.3, so he's getting 3/10 in the first sector alone. Lucas, however, has picked himself a penalty. Now, Lucas has dropped away dramatically. He's just simply not had any race pace whatsoever. He's dropped back ever since the first open laps of the Grand Prix. From P3 down to P10. That's an absolute massive disappointment for Lucas' side, considering he won the first race of the season last season. But Vinicius, if he has the pace, can he get that gap over 2 seconds? It might be a bit difficult. I think Dylan still has it, but can Finn do anything about Dylan to try and get that gap over 1 second? Fireplace, however, loses loads amount of time towards Eric. The overcut has worked in Eric's favour by a milestone. The gap is 4.4 seconds. He is unchallenged in P3. He is catching first and second, but it won't be enough. I think P3 will be his best unless the safety car comes out.
Yeah, indeed, 12 seconds. He is not going to close that down in the remainder of this race. 10 laps to go as TVHNL is fighting it out with Potajov, who has been put into the grass there on the exit of turn 10. Bit of a coming together there with the Mercedes and the Williams. So the two Mercedes are in a Williams sandwich. Lucas leading this rather slow train, I have to say. But Happy Meal is trying to find a way past. Happy Meal has had a really strong qualifying to this race. But finds himself at the moment outside the top 10, although Lucas ahead of him has got a time penalty, and he's also looking to try and find a way past. He's very close to the back of the Williams, but just could not quite get the exit right, and at the moment has to stay behind the Williams of Lucas, who has got multiple penalties, I think. Yeah, 9 seconds already worth of penalties, so he doesn't need to overtake, but it would be nice because Vessel in P9 has also got a penalty, so if he could get past Lucas, then he might be able to close the gap down to Vessel, which is at the moment 8 seconds, but Vessel with a 6-second time penalty means you will only need to close 2 seconds down, so it's important for Happy Meal to find a way past as soon as possible.
So to interrupt, but I saw for 1 second Max would go for a move on Fireblaze. He was using a lot of battery on that short straight, trying to get past Fireblaze. He was going to go down the inside, but backed off it. Now Mike, it's all in the back. Here he is then with the DRS. Can he go down the inside? In towards the limit. Late braking from Mike there. But Enzo still on the outside, bit of contact between his two. They're side by side of the exit. And look at that, more contact as well. Both of them struggling for traction as Mike gets himself into P5 ahead of Enzo. So that mistake out of turn 9 and turn 10. But down he is, and he goes in towards turn 13. He gets past it, but Mike does the switch back. Around the outside he goes, in towards the final corner. Mike surely has a better exit. Around the outside he does. Better traction, better release off the corner. He's back up into P5 ahead of Enzo. So great battle in there. But Daniel is at the pit lane to do his second stop on the wet compound tyres there after he pitted quite early in the Grand Prix doing inter wet. But Mike, fantastic to go from there up into P5 he goes then. Enzo got caught out by trying to do a move on Fireblaze. He's slowed down so much towards turn 9. He cost himself in towards 10 and in towards 11. Mike got past him. Fantastic move there from Mike.
Absolutely brilliant racing and a brilliant move there from Mike. And look at Daniele, he's coming out in P10. I didn't expect him to come out that high, as he now does have to fight off TVHNL in the Mercedes, trying to find a way past. And actually, TVHNL, he's got past Happy Meal, so Happy must have happened something to him, because he's lost out to Lucas now up the inside of his team, and the two Mercedes are fighting it out. But Daniele still inside the top 10, despite doing one stop more than everyone else around him. And now can try and get past Lucas with the tire advantage. So might not be all over for Daniele in this race. Could still get a few points here and there. So good so far as Happy Meal unfortunately picks up a 3-second time penalty as well. And that is going to limit his chances of getting inside that top 10. But there's still a lot to learn, of course, in his first race here in Tier 1. And he has done a phenomenal job so far, must be said, in qualifying especially, with some strong pace. But on to lap 22 we go. And Dylan, he is close to gap down a little bit again towards Finn Grit. It's around 1.1, 1.2 seconds. So he's still very much in a position to win this race. He's going to have to be taking care of the tires as well. And he's now under 1 second. So, like I said before, he just needs to keep it within the white lines. That's all he has to do. And he could still win this race. So he's showing some incredibly strong pace against someone who is incredibly quick around this track. Finn Geert as Daniele gets past Lucas on the main straight. Now up into P9. And well, he's got a 6-second time penalty himself. So I think it is going to be P9 for Daniele at best. I don't see him close 11 seconds in the remainder of this race, which is 7 or 8 laps. So Mike then, if we switch back to the Ferraris, he's in P5, right behind his team, and I think Ferrari is safe for a P4 and P5 finish, because Enzo has dropped behind a little bit in the McLaren. It's 1.3, 1.4 seconds, so Ferrari looking quite strong with the result, but not as strong as McLaren, who are at the moment in P1 and P6, but Finn Geerts, with that time penalty, might not be able to hold on to that P1, as there is 7 laps to go, and which one of those 2 drivers is going to come out on top to win the opening race here in SDN.
Kevin Zumberg is in the chat course, a former winner, a winner in Las Vegas, and also a winner at the Qatar Grand Prix. He did win in Brazil, but I think he picked himself up a penalty, because remember, he went 3 abreast in towards turn 4, and he managed to win the last race of the season, but unfortunately, I think a post-race penalty kicked in, and therefore he lost. But Kevin Zumberg is in the chat course, a driver who is racing for PSG. He was in the social race, I think, a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, when me and Milan commentated it, but when Kevin Zumberg, he has some mighty pace, and I think he's in ETA as well. ETA coming Zumberg, so I really hope he does well as well, because even Finn Geerts, I forget he's in ETA. ETA is a mighty esports team as well, and I think, who is it? What's his name? ETA Lawrence as well, who is also up there as well. So I can't wait to see what happens in Division, PSGL in F1 and F2, but hopefully Kevin's in F1 and F2, because he's got some mighty pace, but especially this day, we're seeing Kevin, who has been absolutely dominant sometimes, but sometimes he has been struggling as well. We saw that a few weeks ago as well, when he just can't seem to get it together, and qualifying is his biggest downfall, because sometimes qualifying, his best result comes towards the last stages when qualifying ticks down to 0 as well. I'm not quite sure if it's purposeful or not, but he shows his best lap time towards the end of the session, and that's when his race picks up as well from there. And Bush says, my wall hurt my wheel. Yeah, unlucky there, Bushy Bush. I was on board with you, so you can go back on board and see what happened there, because you crashed into the wall. It was such a light tap. A light tap just caused you to lose your wheel there. And Kevin says, I'm here next week again on probably my best track. So hopefully when Kevin returns, he can show what he could do, and we'll see what happens as well. And Bush says that's even worse. Yeah, unlucky Bush, but hopefully he come back stronger in the next race or 2. But there's 5 laps left to go, and still Dylan, is right behind Finn Geerts, and the gap is 0.6 of a second. All Dylan needs to do is not pick up a 3-second penalty, and he surely wins this Grand Prix. I'm not quite sure how many warnings he's got right now, but if he's smart, he will not pick up a penalty or go out wide. He knows not to push too hard. I know he wants to win this track. Every single driver wants to win on the track, in terms of pride, in terms of ego, in terms of being the quickest. But sometimes you've got to think methodically here and not go for it. So he might have to stay behind. You're not on me here, ups my ego, so P1 to P1 as a promise, Indigo, says Kevin Zumberg. So let's see if that is the promise. I'll screenshot that, and next week, if you don't do it, I'll send it to you and see what happens. But there is a bar mark in the way, that's Eastbound. Eastbound hasn't been here for the whole race. Now, last season's champion in Season 5, I would have loved to see what he would have done in this Grand Prix, but unfortunately he backed off or left the session, so we can't quite see what Eastbound could have done. But if he was here for the whole race, what could he have done? And he would have definitely been up there for sure. Same with Eric as well, because Eric's pulled away by Fireblaze by 8.3 seconds, considering he did a massive overcut on the guys behind. Maybe Fireblaze and Lucas. Fireblaze versus Lucas was the reason why Fireblaze lost a load of time, because when side by side all through the first sector, Fireblaze lost a lot of time. As Bush says, not the Jack Dewey crash. Yep. He did the exact same thing as Jack doing at the exit of turn 6 when he crashed at the end of the first set. So that was his first lap as well. First lap in the Grand Prix, Jack Dewey crashed. Isaac Hadjar, the driver I commentated as well before the past, believe it or not, crashed at the exit of turn 2 on the formation lap. But that can be excusable, because Isaac Hadjar has done a mega job since then, so nobody can really laugh on that, although we all did laugh, especially when he cried on the formation lap when he crashed. But I think Isaac Hadjar has done a mega job since then. Oh, in the background, off goes Mercedes in the gloom, and that was Happy Meal there, who almost lost at the exit of the final corner. A Patap job is right there for the take his ball as we head down towards turn 1. He looked out of control, but luckily did not do it. And Kevin Zumberg says Isaac Hadjar was a PSG F1 driver. Yes, he was. But believe it or not, on this channel, I did commentate for Isaac Hadjar on this channel. It says FML Esports, so go check that out on the live streams. Better so promo there, but I don't care. But yes, I used to commentate for Isaac Hadjar, and I used to race against him as well. So believe it or not, I did used to do so 4 or 5 years ago. So that's a bit of something to shout out there for.
5 laps to go in this race. Finn leads ahead of Dylan, and to come back to your point of how many warnings Dylan has, the answer is 2 warnings for exceeding track limits. So he cannot afford to go any wider or one more time, or he will pick up that 3-second time penalty, which could prevent him from taking the win. So he needs to keep it in the white lines for the remainder of this race, which is only 4 laps right now. And the gap is still 1.1 seconds. He's been doing a stellar job in this race to stay close with Finn Geert, stay in that 1 second window since the start of this race. And he's looking to take victory here around Melbourne in the opening race of this season. Erik is looking in a very, very comfortable P3. He's got the best tires out of everyone around him, apart from his teammate down in P9. He's got star advantage to Fireblaze as well behind him. Fireblaze has built a little bit of a gap now towards Mike, 1.4 seconds. And now Enzo has closed the gap down a little bit back to Mike, who's got a 1 lap tire advantage. So who knows if Enzo can try and do anything in these final few laps in P6. Geitekas in a very lonely 7th place. Same can be said for Wessel in P8. The gap is still 10 seconds to Daniele, who will finish in P9 as Patachop and Happy Meal once again going at it for P12 and P13. They're not fighting for any points or any position inside the top 10. Surprise, Lucas is still holding on to that 10th place, but he's got that 9-second time penalty, which will hurt him, because Steve Janelle, without a penalty, for sure will take that final position inside the top 10 from the Williams driver. But 3 laps to go. Finn Geert has been leading this race since the start, but it's looking likely that he will not be taking the win, because Dylan Hogeland in the Racing Bulls is in P2 and he's got 1 second towards the McLaren driver, and if he keeps it in the white lines, I'm sure he will be taking home victory. So 2.5 laps to go. If there could be any crazy happening in these final few laps, or is it going to be straight up drive towards the finish?
Yeah, Dylan Hogeland needs to keep it on the track. He does not need to exceed track limits. He has got 2 warnings, so 1 more warning is a penalty, and therefore they'll be back on the level play field. Finn Geert is hoping that Dylan gets himself a 3-second penalty, but my driver of the day for sure is Erik in P3. He has done a mega job. His stint on the first tyres on the wets was fantastic, and despite being on old wet compound tyres, he still had the pace of people on newer tyres to keep ahead of them during the pit stops and get ahead of them as well. Did the overcut on the guys behind like Fireblaze, Mike and Max as well, and rejoin ahead of them, and it's up into P3 as well. So fantastic of Erik. Can be absolutely happy, as Erik we know, who is a multiple race winner here in SDN, who has shown some fantastic pace as well in the past few races. Up into P3, the gap is 15.5. There's nothing he can do against the top 2. The top 2 have checked out of Finn Geert and Dylan, but I'm so glad as well that the first race of the season has Max there slides at the exit of turn 11. They're on board with the McLaren driver who loses more time. Now, I wonder, people who pitted quite early in the Grand Prix, they could find themselves in towards punchy territory. Now, the reason why I'm saying this, because I had a race around in Australia and I pitted a lap 12 or lap 11, and I really struggled for tyre grip towards the end of the Grand Prix. Bearing in mind though, I was in, like, let's say Max's situation, but up into P5, catching the top 3, because 3rd and 4th place was in my sights, and I was in P5 trying to hunt down P3 and P4. I was taking so much out of the tyres, and I thought for 1 second I could overtake the 3rd and 4th place, but I couldn't do so. And towards the end of the Grand Prix, I dropped backwards dramatically because I took too much of my tyres, and 3rd and 4th place saved the tyres sufficiently, and therefore had enough tyre life towards the end to get towards the end of the Grand Prix without a puncher, even though 3rd and 4th place in my league, despite tyre saving the whole race, picked up punchers. And me, I pitted with 2 laps left to go in the Grand Prix, and I pitted myself up a puncher towards the Grand Prix despite pitting. So tyre life is a big key around here in Australia, and I wonder some people might be struggling on these wet compound tyres as well. So let's see if anybody picks up punches towards the end. I think the wet compound tyres have still got enough to tread in them left in the end of the Grand Prix, but we're on lap 28, 29. It's not been the first race of the season expected, but of course every single race can't be a brilliant race, although we've seen some tremendous skill and talent because there's been no safety cars, only 1 VSC in this Grand Prix. Ticey has got past Pachat Job. He puts himself up into P12. Both Williamses has been struggling throughout the whole of the season. Hopefully kick is back as well. Job has picked himself up a penalty in this Grand Prix as well. He's really struggling. We can see these guys in the midfield sliding out of turn 6 and turn 7 as Happy Meal Use a lot of battery, trying to overtake the Williams there. Can he do so into towards on the turn 10? However, guys, we're on the final lap of the Grand Prix. And so far, Finn Hurst has led every single lap of the Grand Prix. He's at track position. But at the same time, though, he has pitted himself for a 3-second penalty and therefore could not break out the 3-second gap. Dylan Hodeland in P2 has done an absolute mega job on his debut here for SDN as well. I don't think he's raced in Tier 1, maybe Tier 2 and Tier 3. But in Tier 1, he has done an absolute mighty job. And for his first race of the season, to keep the pressure and keep it under 3 seconds as well, not make any mistakes in the Grand Prix. His first race for Racing Bull, his first race for SDN, he has done a mega job. And to go up against the likes of Finn Hurst, who is absolutely quick. We've seen it in JSR, we've seen it with the leagues as well. He's an ETA for a reason. And to go up against a driver like him and doing a fantastic job to keep up with him throughout the whole Grand Prix, because Finn Hurst hasn't exactly pulled away. But here we go, in this wet race here in Australia, the first race of the season. It was Cycler who won, but Fireblaze gets a penalty towards the end of the Grand Prix. But here comes Finn Hurst, who will take first place. But Dylan Hogeland will come across the line to win the Australian Grand Prix for his first race of the season. What an absolute fantastic drive from him. And he cut the corner too, but that's AI driving. Here comes Eric too. Eric from P19. He will finish in P3. What a fantastic drive from Eric to finish in P3 in the house. Fireblaze and Mike, 4th and 5th place. Max in P6. Hazikas in P7. And as you can see in the first race of the season, there has been a massive field spread, as you expect in the rain. Fireblaze drops into P6. But here comes Hazikas, the man who struggled in qualifying in JSR and also in qualifying 2 in SDN. He'll finish in P7 in the Australian Grand Prix, and Vettel, a low majority Grand Prix, finishes at P8 ahead of Daniela, who went from inter wet. It was a wet race, so the whole race done a 29 laps here in Australia too. But here comes the rest of the field outside the top 10. Lucas, who has been in P10 majority Grand Prix, qualified in P3 but dropped backwards in the early stages, finishes in P10. TVH and Nell, do you know what? An absolute mighty drive from TVH because he's one of the drivers that get knocked out of Q1 previously all the time, regularly I will say. But he finished in P10, and he usually does finish at the top 10 majority of the time as well, especially towards the back end of the last season. So fantastic job from TVH in P10.
Oh, what a race then in the end, and what an incredible result. A flawless race, must be said, from Dylan Hogeland, securing that win, not getting a penalty. Finn Geerts, he drove incredibly well as well, but unfortunately that 3-second time penalty hurt him, and he has to settle for 2nd place. But still, a race where he has shown some incredible pace, as the driver of the day has been given to Eric Anserparty for P19 to P3, and the cleanest driver out of all of them is apparently TVHNL, so well done for him to keeping it the cleanest out there. But Dylan with an incredible win in the season opener. Finn Geerts in P2, Erik from 19th to P3, Mike Ford ends up 5th, and Fireblaze unfortunately picking up a penalty in the final sector of the final lap after 29 laps, picks up a penalty on the final lap, unfortunately drops him down to P6 from 4th on the grid. Would have been P4, and well done to Geitekas for keeping his tires alive after having to do 15 laps on these wets. But a great race all in all, and a great way to kick off this season. So well done to everyone, and well done to Dylan for taking the win.
The next race of the season is in Qatar. Remember, Kevin Zumberg was the one that won in Qatar last season, and he did say in this race he's making a return to Qatar as well, so I can't wait to see what he does. But what a way to kick off the season opener. Of course, in the wet conditions, of course, in Australia, it can't always be dry, but we saw some massive gaps in the field. Hopefully the gaps are reduced as well in Qatar, because the wet conditions can really separate the good from the best. As Bush F1 says, not Qatar, so I don't think he's enjoying the Qatar Grand Prix, but we'll see what happens there. But Milan Langer, mate, we've had a lot of people watching this Grand Prix, even though we did have a bit of a broadcast issue in the first part of the Grand Prix. It's been an absolute pleasure to commentate with you, mate, and I can't wait to kickstart the season for the 15 races here this season, season 6, to commentate alongside you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. You're an absolute legend.
Thank you very much, and it's been great so far, and I'm sure it will be great for the remainder of the season. So I'm looking forward to doing that as well. So what a way to end off, and what a way to start in one way this season. So I'm looking forward for the remainder of these 14 races. So that's it for tonight, and thank you as well.
Dankjewel and expression later top scenes. We'll see you all later at the Qatar Grand Prix for round 2 of the season. It should be an absolute thriller, especially with the circuits being so quick, with high-speed corners, and also fuel could be an issue, tyre wear could be a massive issue too. So keep tuned for the Qatar Grand Prix next week at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock UK time on Friday next week. We'll see you all later. Goodbye for now.
Adios.